It's called science.
YouTube reactor Samantha, wife of foodie beauty commentator Yaba, the YouTube underground, has a fascinating backstory. This is due partly to the ever-shifting details in her backstory, which has been revised more times than the history of Oceania.
I'm a fucking YouTube live streamer!
This video is the first in a series exploring Samantha's stories about herself. Today, we'll cover Samantha's life from birth to her elopement as a teenager. While many of the details are sensational enough, what I enjoy most is the way Samantha's stories change, depending on her audience. Samantha's stories share a generally consistent narrative, but we'll note certain inconsistencies, and I'll propose possible reasons for them. Before proceeding, the Institute thanks Samantha for giving explicit permission during a March 2024 live stream to do this sort of detailed analysis.
We're going to be playing by DC 2.0 rules, or I'm sorry, we're going to be playing by OG DC rules, which was basically anything goes, no holds barred, right? So, I mean, that's kind of the rules we've been playing by, regardless, so far, since like December. So fine, we're just here to make it official.
Both she and her wife Yaba have repeatedly approved of using off-platform sources. Here, for instance, Samantha displays a non-YouTuber's Facebook homepage, which she acknowledges she did not ask permission to do. Here we see Samantha using Google Maps to locate previous residences of a fellow YouTuber. Here, Samantha displays a YouTuber's, quote, government name, along with her publicly available court proceedings. To be fair, it's her wife's. Here, however, we see Samantha sharing rival reactor French fried Gorl's paperwork, along with her government name. Samantha also allows for and encourages sharing information about relatives, whether living or, in this case, not, along with the cause of death. And here we have another example. For some reason, Samantha felt it significant that the deaths occurred on her birthday and the birthday of one of her children. Regardless, the Institute once again thanks Samantha for her encouragement in this project. So without further ado, let's begin at the beginning. Per her later arrest reports, Samantha is born in Hammond, Indiana, on October 18, 1976. Her mother is Barbara Jean, one of 5 daughters who share the middle name Jean, in honor of their mother. Samantha's birth father is unknown, though I confess that I have my suspicions. Barbara already has a son, Daniel, born roughly 2 years prior. In a 2008 blog post, Samantha, writing under the name Madness, asserts the siblings share the same father, who may or may not be a demon sultan dreaming beyond angled space. From birth, Samantha's life faces certain pressures. She is, for instance, born out of wedlock, at a time that carries greater social stigma for both mother and child. In addition, Samantha is born into a family ravaged by the effects of substance abuse. During a March 2024 live stream, Samantha accuses Gorl World reactor The Gaining Ground of having fetal alcohol syndrome and cites her own lived experience.
My mom was also an alcoholic piece of shit. Okay. My mom's mom, my grandmother, gave birth to 5 children, and the youngest 2 were born with fetal alcohol syndrome.
To be clear, Barbara Jean is not one of the children born with fetal alcohol syndrome. She's simply a chronic alcoholic. In this clip, possibly from 2018 or 2019, Samantha seems to have some engagement with the father's family, if only due to her mother's neglect.
My mom had 5 sisters.
Oh, wow.
And so between my mom's family, my dad's family, me and my brother, till I was 4 and a half, he was 6, we were passed around to the sisters, just wherever.
Alternatively, the father had no involvement with the children, and their care fell solely to Barbara Jean's sisters. This seems likely, given that the father will not contest the children's adoption. Samantha has offered several reasons for the adoption. For instance, she claims that Barbara Jean told her the adoption was for the children's safety, due to an abusive relationship. We'll discuss that claim and its consequences later in the video. During that March 2024 live stream cited earlier, Samantha claims the adoption was due to Barbara Jean's chronic alcoholism.
So she lied to my aunt and said that she was taking us to a sitter when really she put us in the abandoned building next to the bar. My 5-year-old brother ended up walking to the fire station where our grandfather was a volunteer firefighter to get us help.
It is perhaps at this point that Samantha ceases having contact with her mother. Samantha can at least be thankful for not having been cast into an orphanage or forced into the child labor market, be it match girl, chimney sweep, or in this case, Pennsylvania coal miner. As we shall see later in the video, this March 2024 live stream is the only one I've found in which Samantha discusses her mother's alcoholism as a factor in her adoption. Likewise, reasons cited elsewhere are not discussed here. As evidenced by her 2008 blog posts, Samantha and her brother Daniel are likely adopted during the spring or summer of 1981. Samantha is adopted by second cousins on her mother's side, and Daniel is adopted by close friends of theirs. Samantha claims the families would make the effort to keep the siblings, quote, together as closely as possible. And I note that by the time of her adoption, perhaps via orphan train, Samantha had likely not been in contact with Barbara Jean for at least 6 months. Before leaving Hammond, consider 2 experiences Samantha shares with her future wife Yaba. The first is a family history of substance abuse.
I've been around addicts my whole entire life. My mom would come home and she would have 1 beer in her system and I'd say, "You've been drinking, haven't you?"
The second is the lack of a relationship with the biological father.
Let me break it down to you. My dad, my father, was a sperm donor. I have never met him to this day, nor do I want to. That's a sperm donor.
At this point, we could probably do with a bit of sunshine, and I know of one state where one's likely to find it. Samantha spends roughly the next decade of her life in Titusville, Florida, just west of the Kennedy Space Center. Samantha's new home, and presumably home life, is a decided improvement over Hammond. Her adoptive father, Robert, is an attorney specializing in personal injury and wrongful death lawsuits. He also has an active civic life, even having served a term as Titusville's mayor. Her adoptive mother, Nora, is a junior leaguer and community volunteer. Robert and Nora are prominent in the community, often featured in the society column for parties hosted and attended. Even their baby showers are considered worthy of public interest. That is, Samantha will not be an only child in her new home. By the time she arrives, Robert and Nora already have 2 sons, only slightly older than Samantha. Interestingly, the younger son was expected to be a girl, as seen in this Florida Today article discussing Nora's pink-themed baby shower. I have wondered if the desire for a daughter motivated their adopting Samantha. Regardless, almost 4 years after Samantha's adoption, Nora gives birth to Samantha's younger, adoptive sister. During a February 2024 live stream, Samantha shows realtor pictures of her former home and reminisces.
We lived in Royal Oak. And that is the Royal Oak golf course that is abandoned behind my childhood home.
As a reminder, her biological brother is raised in the same suburb, somewhere on the other side of the Royal Oak golf course. While most of Samantha's house tour consists of mocking dated features, we can't miss this bit of lore.
This was my room. I had a bathroom. That was my room.
Of course, the proximity to Kennedy Space Center has its consequences. In January 2019, Samantha posts an open letter to then South Bend Mayor Pete Buttigieg on several social media platforms. In the letter, Samantha speaks of witnessing firsthand the 1986 Challenger disaster, while on her elementary school playground. She speaks of the children's fear of falling debris and of one child who blamed himself for having, quote, crossed the path of a black cat that morning. As to why she felt like sharing this story, Mayor Pete had failed to return Samantha's phone calls. Nor did Samantha think it mere coincidence that Pete had referenced the challenger in 2 recent speeches, apparently having known of Samantha's childhood background. We'll dig deeper into Samantha's relationship with Mayor Pete in a future video, along with other political figures who are likewise keeping tabs on her. Apart from witnessing the challenger disaster, Samantha seems to live the life of a typical 1980s girl from a suburban, upper-middle-class home. She takes piano lessons.
These are the hands of a pianist. Thank you very much. I took piano lessons when I was a kid.
She participates in the local children's theater. In A Bit of Art Imitates Life, Samantha is cast as a backup orphan in a production of the musical Annie.
Wonderful.
And Robert seems interested in cultivating Samantha's mind, bringing her on as an unofficial legal secretary.
I spent my childhood growing up sitting at the dinner table after dinner until bedtime, highlighting and redacting depositions, helping my dad.
This no doubt informs Samantha's later passion for legal drama. In 1990, however, Samantha's life takes a darker turn, as imagined here in a reenactment of the closing moments from Tori Amos's music video for Spark.
When I was 13 years old, I'll sum it up. Kidnapped, raped, beaten, left for dead on a riverbank.
Interestingly, Samantha elects to share this story during a stream in which she is explaining to fellow reactor Callie, Life of a Free Spirit, why Samantha's was the superior childhood trauma narrative.
Let's talk about some fucking childhood trauma, Callie. Okay?
While Samantha's lived experience could be informative, particularly when the topic of child abuse comes to prominence in Gorl World in mid-2024, I've only found mention of this incident in this stream. Let me be clear, I am not necessarily doubting Samantha's experience. It is, however, troubling that Samantha later turns child abuse into fodder, as here where she discusses allegations against an online enemy.
Oh, Pirate was fucked by her grandpa for years, and she cried to go to her house when her mama said no. It was about 14 or 15 years old when her grandpapa stopped fucking her. Anyway, Callie, moving on.
Or in 2024 and 2025 when Samantha and her wife Yaba propose contacting Rain, to discourage it from accepting donations from people who are critical of the two. By her own admission, Samantha is facing multiple forms of trauma. A year after the assault, Samantha is removed from the home.
My parents decide that I'm too much trouble because, I don't know, childhood trauma really fucked me up, right? So my dad writes a big check and gets me put in this wilderness educational program in the swamplands of Florida, right?
That is, Samantha is sent to a boarding school-style program as an alternative to transorbital lobotomy or enforced rest beside overly busy wallpaper. We note that Samantha seems to be hinting that her behavior has likely been a problem for some time in the household. I note also, and cannot stress it enough, Samantha's behavior was deemed disruptive enough that her removal from the home was seen as necessary. Though Samantha speaks poorly of the program in this clip, elsewhere she's spoken positively of her experiences, even proposing to attend a reunion. Finally, Samantha meets a fellow boarder, Billy, later known as Arabia, who will become a key figure in Samantha's bridging the gap between her time in the drama community and her pivot to Gorl World. Unfortunately, Samantha's time in alternative school marks the end of her time in Florida. As discussed, following her time in boarding school, Samantha returns to Indiana and resumes living with her biological mother, who has since moved to Mishawaka. Of course, Barbara Jean's life has not been static in Samantha's absence. Barbara Jean meets a man named Richard. The timing of their meeting will be crucial.
She made a point of saying, I didn't meet Richard till after you guys were in Florida. You were long gone. You were already in Florida before I met Richard.
Richard has a background in sales, particularly clothing sales. He may often be found in local newspaper advertisements from the 1960s through the early 70s, modeling menswear. Richard is also divorced, with a daughter from his previous marriage who is slightly older than Samantha. On May 23, 1981, Richard marries Barbara Jean. In December 1983, around 2 years after Samantha and her brother are adopted out to Florida, Barbara Jean and Richard announce the birth of a daughter. 6 years later, Barbara Jean and Richard welcome a son to their growing family. We will return to the timing of the children's adoption and Barbara Jean's marriage. For now, however, let's consider the timing of Samantha's return to Indiana. In the earliest clip available, Samantha states the following.
I was 14. I flew my ass back up to Indiana, moved back in with my biological mother, who I had not seen or heard of since before I was 4.
I'm going to dismiss this claim as Samantha misspeaking, since it conflicts with all the other versions I've heard. For instance, in a 2008 blog post, Samantha, writing under the name Madness, insinuates she was cheerleading when her school won the 1992 Florida State Championship. This would mean Samantha moved to Indiana in late 1990 or 1991, yet still found time to cheer her hometown team to victory in 1992. I will point out that no high school within the vicinity of Titusville went to state in 1992, nor had they done so in a decade. In the introduction to her blog, Samantha more plausibly claims to return to Indiana at age 16, meaning late 1992 or 1993. This is affirmed by a statement in her March 2022 live stream.
I don't go back to my adopted parents, right? By now I'm 16. Well, I didn't go back to my adopted parents. I got sent back to Indiana, where I'm from.
This statement is worth comparing against the earlier clip. In one version, Samantha's leaving Florida is self-directed, seemingly desired. That is, she, quote, put her ass on a plane. In the other version, she is passive. This is something done to her, apparently without her ever returning to her adoptive family's home following her time as Rosemary Kennedy. In this second version, as in all the variants, Samantha may have been confined for up to 2 years. Again, despite the goals of the program, Samantha's presence is deemed so disruptive to her adoptive family's home that she's returned to a mother, a stepfather, and half-siblings she knows nothing of. Still, the family seems to have made something of an effort with its fledgling upon her arrival at her new home, though an aunt seems determined to spoil the occasion.
So they have this barbecue welcoming Sammy home. The whole family's there. And my aunt comes up to me. She's like, if you ever want to know the truth about what happened, you need to ask me because your mom's lying to you, right?
As mentioned earlier in this video, the alleged lie is that Barbara Jean gave away her children due to an abusive, potentially lethal relationship. One wonders how the aunt knew that Barbara Jean told this story to her daughter. One also wonders why the aunt would introduce tension into an already fragile relationship, particularly with a clinically troubled teenager like Samantha. Nor is this the only challenge Samantha faces. During a 2023 live stream, Samantha recalls the date of a separate, life-changing encounter.
So, we met in March, and he was 20. He turned 21 in June. And I had just turned 7. No, dude, I wasn't 17. I was 16.
Unless it wasn't.
And this was March. Was it March? I think so. Honestly, I don't fucking remember. No, okay, no, I do remember. It was March when we first met, but it was May when, whatever. It was May.
Samantha is referring to her first encounter with her future ex-husband Harold, with May possibly being when the two eloped. While Samantha later waffles on the month, in a June 2008 blog post, she speaks very admiringly of Harold, whom she later nicknames Max. She refers to his commanding presence in a video arcade, quote, schooling the other players. She also speaks of an immediate and deeply felt love, born of inferred qualities and later attributable to entanglements across endless reincarnations, which tends to be common with lapsed, unhappy Catholic women in Gorl World. While Samantha finds love of a sort, her home life is rapidly disintegrating. During a 2022 feud with Callie over whose childhood was worse, Samantha discusses her stepfather's telling remark.
We're sitting down to dinner one day. I had been back here like 3 months or some bullshit like that. And Richard turns to me and says, "Yeah, I remember you when you were this tall and I used to call you Sammy Ray."
If, as I have proposed, Samantha and her brother were adopted in spring or summer 1981, then Barbara Jean married Richard at the same time. As a reminder, Samantha has said she was 4 or 4.5 when adopted. In theory, Samantha could have been adopted in 1980, though due to her late birth month, it's useful to add or deduct a year as appropriate. Regardless of year assigned to the adoption, Richard's alleged remark cannot be accounted for, unless subsequently invented. According to Samantha, she took her aunt up on the offer to hear the real reason Barbara Jean had her and her brother adopted.
The truth was that she had met this dude, Richard. He had adult children. He said, "I'm all down for hooking up with you, but I've already raised my kids, so get rid of him," and she did, right?
While horrifyingly melodramatic, missing only a surprise inheritance from some uncle's will, Samantha's story presents some basic narrative challenges. 1. Richard had no grown children as far as I have seen. He had a single daughter from a previous marriage, who is basically Samantha's age. 2. If Richard were done with parenting, why have 3 more children with Barbara Jean? At least with this second question, I could imagine it's not an issue so much of children as Barbara Jean's children. 3. If Richard wanted nothing to do with Barbara Jean's bastards, why allow her obviously troubled offspring into his home? Particularly when neither he nor Barbara Jean are responsible for Samantha, assuming Barbara Jean terminated her rights so that Robert and Nora might legally adopt her. One thing I find very interesting about Samantha's return to Indiana is that she fails to mention her siblings. You'd be forgiven for thinking she was briefly an only child. Regardless, this revelation marks the end of Samantha's attempted reconciliation with Barbara Jean. Again, one wonders what the aunt's goal was, particularly given the course of Samantha's life after their conversation. Regarding the aftermath, Samantha presents 2 contradictory narratives. In the first narrative, wherein Samantha is attempting to trump Callie over terrible childhoods borrowed from the lesser works of Joyce Carol Oates and the greater works of V.C. Andrews, Samantha flees to her boyfriend's apartment, thrumming with revelation. In a live stream from a year later, however, Samantha presents the circumstances quite differently.
He was a 20-year-old who, had a 16-year-old girl who he didn't fucking know knock on his door in the middle of the night and my parents just kicked me out. Can I crash over here?
Regardless, this marks the end of Samantha's time with either her biological or adoptive family. Next time, we'll explore Samantha's construction of a new family, focusing on her conflicting narratives about Harold. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, feel free to give it a thumbs up. If you'd like to receive notifications, please ring the bell.
And now I'm just hi, happier.
Twice if need be. And remember,